He's here in Paris to attend the World Congress Against the Death Penalty. Austrian lawyer, diplomat Volker Türk is the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Thanks for being with us here on France 24.
Thanks for having me.
So, immigration in the news a lot. Let's begin with, here in South Africa, you have this sort of departure day demonstrations run by several anti-immigrant groups. There have been voluntary repatriation flights organized by some countries. Our correspondent was saying something that's spiking ahead of elections in the fall. Your reaction?
Well, unfortunately, migration, refugee issues have become very toxic and polarizing in public debate, but also, as we could see with the attacks in South Africa, they have actually even led to physical attacks and to, frankly, discussions around, even in Europe, around remigration. So I think we really need an all-out effort to calm the emotions, to look at migration differently, to actually recognize that migration is something which has all of us a part of the common humanity, and to actually see in the other a human being, and not to dehumanize migrants and refugees. And I think that's what unfortunately happens all over the world these days.
The South Africans saying we have 30% unemployment in our country, and so we only want people with a legal status.
Well, first of all, most of the migrants work in the so-called 3D jobs, meaning dirty, no one else wants to do it. They are often also not dehumanizing. So we have, unfortunately, also a labor market that often attracts migrant workers who are often very poor, who end up in these jobs. And we need to actually absolutely agree. We need to legalize migration and find ways to regularize it. But we should also always bring it back to the human level. I mean, the migrants are not taking away the jobs of South Africans or are taking away jobs in Europe or in the US. We should really recognize it. They are an important contribution to our societies and to our countries. I think it's really important to bring it back to the facts and the evidence and humanity.
All right, so let's talk about Europe for a second, because you have contrast. Today is a different kind of deadline day over in Spain, where if you can prove that you don't have a criminal record and you've been there for at least 5 months, you can apply for a 1-year renewable visa if you're an asylum seeker or if you don't have documents. Over at the European Union last week, they had discussions with the Taliban for sending asylum seekers back. Your thoughts on that?
So I welcome very much what Spain is doing on the regularization program. I think it's very much a proven concept that has worked in many other countries as well, because precisely it looks at who is present, how have they contributed. We exclude those with criminal records, and you actually regularize the population. When it comes to Afghanistan, I've been absolutely clear. The human rights situation in Afghanistan is extremely precarious, especially for women and girls, but also for men and boys. We have been very clear. Nobody should be returned forcibly to Afghanistan, and we need protection, refugee protection for those who seek asylum because they flee persecution.
Have you had conversations with officials from countries like Germany and Austria?
We have been in discussions with them, and we have been very clear what our position is. I have an office also in Afghanistan. We know the situation very well. We know what it means to be going back. And yes, I think those who decide these policies really need to look very carefully at the situation on the ground and what people would face if they are returned.
Volker Türk, we're speaking just a couple of hours after the U.S. Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is in the U.S. Constitution. The Trump administration had challenged that concept. Here in Europe, many countries don't have birthright citizenship. Is it a good thing?
Well, there is the right to a nationality. Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Obviously, countries have different concepts, as you just said. In Europe, it's not based on birthrights. In other countries, it is, especially in the Americas. It's a long tradition. I mean, it's what needs to be done, and the Supreme Court has been very clear about it. It's also important to bear in mind that, especially in a tradition where you have birthrights, that you don't want to take away what is an acquired right. So our issue is always, if you deprive people of nationality that would otherwise be able to be eligible for it, that's what the right to nationality requires. So yes, I think the Supreme Court decision has been very clear about that.
And of course, one of the things that is pushing people to get up and move is the weather. I saw that it was 38 degrees on Monday in your native Linz in Austria. Yes. Today, 42 degrees in Hungary, a national record. We had 8 days of it here. This notion of climate justice, there's been a lot of arguments here in France over who's entitled to air conditioning, for instance.
Look, it is clear that what we live today is due to climate change. So there needs to be a political priority given to absolutely make sure that climate change becomes a priority everywhere. We need to mitigate the effects, but we also need to make sure that we actually keep the temperatures, the global warming, to 1.5 centigrade. That's currently not the case. We are on a trajectory that could heat up the planet within the next couple of decades to 2.5 degrees. And just imagine what this means for our children, our grandchildren. They will inherit a planet that is destroyed, and they will inherit a planet with a lot of more extreme weather events that we are currently experiencing. So it needs an all-out effort to address the climate change
So
issue.
is it a crime, if, for instance, the U.S. government, as it's done again this past week, pays compensation to energy companies not to build wind farms?
Well, we have been absolutely clear that climate justice also means that you have to address the root causes, which means disinvesting from the fossil fuel industry, investing in the renewable energy. I mean, we have just gone out of the Strait of Hormuz, and everyone realized how dependent we are on the fossil fuel industry. So it's clear. And there are actually legal obligations that the International Court of Justice has identified in its advisory opinion that it issued last year, that governments have a responsibility to ensure that current and future generations are protected from the effects of the worst that comes. So there is
such a law in the books here in France. Last week there was a Paris court that ordered the French company Total Energy to come back in 6 months and tell what they're doing on climate change. Environmentalists say it's not enough, that there's too much carrot and not enough stick. Should there be, criminal pursuits for companies that don't go far enough?
Well, I don't know exactly about that particular case, but I do have to say one thing. I think we need to look at ecocide as a crime against humanity. Because ecocide, we see how ecology gets destroyed in most war zones around the world. I mean, just look at Ukraine. The ecology is what has been destroyed will be there for generations to come. We see it in the Middle East. We see it in Sudan. Environment is being destroyed. So at some stage, the issue comes, what do you do with those who committed these crimes? When it comes to the broader issue of environmental protection and climate change, yes, indeed, at some stage we will have to ask ourselves, does it not lead to criminal accountability if you destroy the planet or if you willfully destroy ecosystems?
Tell us a little bit about how things are going at the Commission, because we're going to have an election of a new Secretary General. It's been a testing year, what with the biggest donor to the United Nations that's been taking it on. I don't expect the U.S. will be abiding anytime soon by those climate prerogatives that you set out there. How's your commission doing, the Human Rights Commission doing?
I mean, my office, which is the Office of the High Commissioner of the Human Rights Office of the United Nations, we have been weakened. And in fact, I was even talking about a survival mode that we are in, because we received the budget from the assessed contributions, which means all member states have to pay into the United Nations. These are membership fees, if you like. And if one or two countries, especially the ones who owe most of the money, don't pay up, it affects us. And it has direct effects on the type of things that we can do. For instance, to give you one example, we have a committee on the prevention of torture. Normally they do 10 country visits a year. Last year we could only do 4, which means there will be less prevention of torture, you will have less scrutiny, you will have less monitoring. And that's only one example, and I could give you hundreds, where we have been weakened. And that is not good for the world, because what I represent in terms of our work is stability, is predictability, is a compass, a legal and a moral compass in a world that is in disarray.
Volker Türk, so many thanks for being with us here on France 24.
Thank you very much.